Hi, so I wanted to talk to you about uncertainty. Uncertainty is something that we tolerate in our daily lives, usually okay, but sometimes uncertainty can become really, really uncomfortable. And sometimes it's actually difficult to notice that what is uncomfortable for us is that uncertainty. We credit it to just feeling, I don't know, under the weather, stressed out, or there's a lot on our mind. But it can be really powerful just to notice that actually what's really causing us distress and discomfort is the fact that there's a lot of unknowables, and unknowables inherently are difficult to deal with. There is evolutionary benefit in us being uncomfortable with uncertainty. If we were uncertain that we were safe when we were cave people, we couldn't know that we weren't going to be attacked. So we would have to be hyper vigilant to make sure that we could protect ourselves against that threat. And so what that means is uncertainty equates to threatening situation, to enable us to be on guard and make calculations to get rid of that uncertainty so that we can be sure that we're going to be safe. Obviously, in the modern day world, the threats aren't quite the same for a lot of us. And in modern day society and in first world countries, we still face uncertainty, but very qualitatively differently. And as I say, most of the time we can deal with that just fine. But sometimes that really does tip over, and it has this really destabilizing effect, and it can leave us feeling really, really overwhelmed. So I guess it would be useful just to think about how we approach uncertainty. And the first thing I think is just to notice when you are feeling uncomfortable and crediting that to areas where there is a lot of uncertainty that might be causing you unease. Sometimes they might be huge things. Am I going to get the job? Am I going to keep my current job? Am I going to be able to see my family when I want to see them? Big life things. Sometimes they're just little things, but they really add up. Will my food delivery come on time? Will my doctor's appointment be cancelled? Will I fit into that dress that I ordered? Whatever. They can all be little things, but when they really stack up, they become cumulative and they leave us feeling just overwhelmed and uncomfortable. So first of all, we can really do ourselves a favour by identifying areas in our life where there is uncertainty and just come to acknowledge that and understand that. That can be a really helpful thing to quantify how we're feeling or qualify how we're feeling, which in itself can be really comforting. I guess the second thing then is to look at the areas that we are uncertain in and look at any assumptions that we might be making about that. If this goes the opposite way to how I would like, am I diminishing my capacity to cope with that? Am I diminishing the resources I have available to me to be able to deal with those things? There's a really nice anxiety equation, which is that we get anxious because there's a calculation we make about the outcome of something, and it's the perceived awfulness times likelihood. So if we think something's really awful and really likely, it's going to be a huge source of anxiety, and it's kind of divided by our perceived ability to cope and our perceived perception of the resources to help us cope with that thing. So if we really diminish those down and the other things seem huge, then we're going to feel terrible. And often in anxiety and worry and stress, we forget the other half of the equation. We are equipped to deal with things when they arise, even if it is really uncomfortable. So that's number 2. And I think number 3 is also seeing if we can change the way we regard uncertainty. So the first thing might be just noticing that in uncertainty, our brain automatically goes to the negative end of the spectrum. If there's a whole continuum of how this might turn out, from the worst ever to the best ever, our mind usually goes just below the neutral down to the downright terrible before we've even had a chance to really think about it. Whereas we have an option there. If we notice that's happening, we can start to move it up that spectrum up to the neutral end, and sometimes up to the good end, and we can entertain that. And one thing that can really help us with that is thinking about when uncertainty is actually pleasurable, when it is actually helpful to not know what's going to happen. What would life be like if we knew exactly what was going to happen at every given moment, good and bad? What would life be like? I mean, would you enjoy a book if you knew exactly what was going to happen? Would you go and watch that sports game or play a game if you knew exactly who was going to win? Life would be boring and monotonous. So there's lots of times that uncertainty can work out really well for us. And sometimes it might be helpful to reflect on when that's happened. And that might be easier for some than others. But also it might be just about experimenting in the present, trying to set yourself up for uncertainty where the outcome might be surprising rather than negative. Ordering a meal that you wouldn't usually have from a takeaway, or if we're allowed at restaurants still in a couple of weeks, going to a restaurant and ordering some food that you wouldn't usually get, or picking a film from a different genre that you wouldn't usually watch, or calling someone out of the blue without planning if you don't usually do that kind of thing. So all of these things can be ways to experiment with uncertainty and embrace it, rather than hold it at arm's length as something that's going to always be terrible and uncomfortable. So those are three kind of ways around dealing with uncertainty and reducing the amount of kind of stress and pressure that it puts on us. I guess it might be helpful to summarize that. I guess first of all is, when you are feeling stressed and agitated, it might be useful to see what are the unknowns and are they involved in me feeling this uncomfortable. Number two, I think it would be useful to then see, actually, is there an other end of the spectrum that this could go on? Does uncertainty have to automatically equate with the bad outcome? And number three, experimenting with positive moments of uncertainty. Pick a different meal, pick a different film, pick something else entirely, but see how that changes your relationship with uncertainty and how it might help to shift those automatic patterns that our brain gets into with equating that uncertainty with surefire going to be terrible. And I'd love to know if you do these things, if you start thinking about these things and reflecting on them, let me know what you think. I look forward to hearing from you.